I now turn to our panel, beginning with Armand D'Angour. Armand teaches classics at Oxford University and has researched for many years into ancient Greek music.
Thank you very much. So first, thank you, Lana and Bettina. Congratulations, Bettina, on your interpretations and your very accomplished singing and performance on the lyre under these challenging conditions of singing to an unseen audience. I'm starting off a discussion then with friends and colleagues who will be saying something in 5 minutes or less about their thoughts about and understanding of ancient Greek music from different perspectives. Some are academics and researchers, others like Nikos are creative practitioners. So my own approach as a researcher is to try to understand what the ancient documents and discussions tell us about how the music may actually have sounded. We have around 60 documents of notated music that survive from the classical period down to late antiquity. As Bettina mentioned, the only piece that she sang that derives from one of those documents was the final one, the short song of Seikilo, which was inscribed on a column, perhaps around 200 CE. All the other music was new music, Bettina's own creative reinterpretation of passages of ancient text. As you will have heard, I think the idiom of the Seikilo song is not entirely familiar to us, perhaps less so than the other pieces, given that it begins on one note, what we would call the tonic of the scale, and ends on a fourth below that, the dominant. Now, those who attempt to compose new music set to ancient texts have some possible guides. One is that we know something about how ancient Greek words were pronounced at different times. And we know it differed from classical times to Roman imperial times, when it began to sound a bit more like modern Greek. Another factor to take into account is that we have a detailed understanding of the rhythms used in Greek poetry. And again, congratulations to Bettina, who has bugged me for some time to try and explain how some of these rhythms actually work. You could have heard the dactyls in, for example, her performance of the Homer. A third is that ancient theorists tell us very precisely about the melodic and harmonic nature of the music, and it's very different from modern style. And a fourth is that we can now replicate ancient instruments, in particular the wind instrument, the double pipes or aulos, with some precision, and hear how they may have sounded, work out how they would have been played. Of course, it's entirely the choice of a modern creative practitioner, musician, how far to be guided by such constraints. It's quite likely that if we were to be beamed back to ancient Greece at any period, the music would sound quite strange to our ears and not as appealing as Bettina's songs, which use modern sounding tunings and harmonies and gentle singing style. The microtones used in the earliest music might even make us suppose that people sang and played out of tune. But if you think of listening to, say, Arabic or Balinese song, you'll immediately realize that a different musical idiom operates. And if you listen to sung folk traditions even today in Serbia or Albania, for example, you will know that the vocal style can sound very different from that of Western singing, and that the emotion is generated in quite different ways from those that we're used to. So one of the aspects that I haven't mentioned, which is much harder to grasp, is that there was dance that accompanied so many ancient Greek performances. I believe that the next speaker will say something about this. So I'm delighted to pass on now and to introduce my friend, Dr. Maria Xanthou, who is Visiting Fellow 2020 at the Seeger Center of Hellenic Studies and a Research Associate in Pindaric Studies at Harvard CHS. So Maria, your turn.
Maria